Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. We're back in the saddle and back on track at Backlook Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, Zo, that's Z-O or Z-O, if you're cinema fans overseas. This is the 89th episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a look back at the movies of yesteryears. We're going to talk about the movies we love to watch in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. If you like what you're about to hear, then please take the time out to offer some support by giving us a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can also share our show on social media. Speaking of which, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find the details in the show notes. And now, as promised last week, we have a very special guest. Our next guest uses his life experiences to help other people through this labyrinth. He talks to people about helping others, and he uses his relationships to help others with theirs. He's the host of Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E. That's Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E. podcast with Harvey Laguerre, and the podcast he has with his wife, Love Is Black. Audience members, listeners around the world, I'd like to introduce to you my very special guest host for this week, Harvey Laguerre.
Yo, what's going on? Thank you for the introduction. I feel special. That was nice.
Yeah, I try my best. I want people to be comfortable. I want them to feel welcome, and it basically shows my appreciation for you being here. And thank you for taking time out of your schedule to show up on my little rinky-dink show that's heard worldwide, I want to point out, but it's still a rinky-dink show.
Ain't nothing rinky-dink about your voice being broadcast everywhere, man. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Right. So how are you doing today?
I'm well. Just living life, just dealing with life, kids, family. We're just doing the same thing, trying to maintain. Just doing well. I get the most enjoyment out of talking about the stuff that I love: music, movies, TV. So this is a joy for me. I love doing this.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've heard you. The reason I invited you probably know is that because I've heard you on Rocky's podcast. That podcast is what was that? Were you on both of his podcasts or just one of them?
I've since done a second one, but it's Pardon My Fandom. That's the podcast that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, the first one, the one you heard was because he occasionally has the people debating stuff.
Right.
So the one I was on was, I think you heard, you might have heard the second one, which was my debate about whether Will Smith is a really great actor.
Yeah, I heard both of them.
I'm pretty sure that's the one you heard.
You
heard them both. So
yes,
you heard the first one, which is Star Wars, which is Godfather.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And you were the Godfather candidate. So you're the first. You're the first guest I have that hates Star Wars. So that's actually going to be a challenge for me. It's like, how dare you, sir, integrate my childhood like that? That's
wow.
It was Star Wars and Bruce Lee. And yeah, you're crushing us. If you tell me that you hated the 1980s Wonder Woman, then I don't know what's gonna happen between us.
Linda Carter?
Man,
what? Stop it.
Let me confess this to you. All right, Linda Carter as Wonder Woman let me know that I was heterosexual, and that was
for many a young man, because she, and by the way, is still gorgeous.
Yes, still gorgeous.
He's ridiculous. Oh my God. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. It's like when I saw her in the Wonder Woman outfit, it's like, what's going on down there? Like, a new sensation that I'd never felt before between my loins. God. It was incredible.
I had no expectation of your loins being discussed this evening. So
I told you it was a confession. So
hey man, it's all good.
So you love Linda Carter. So that's good. That's good. That's a good thing. Your hatred of Star Wars can be forgiven. So I'm going to. My audience knows that I am not someone who asks deep questions. Like, these questions are going to be very obvious. These are my totally obvious questions. So I'm going to take this is going to be a service level, like, type of stuff that I'm going to be asking you. So let me ask you my first question. I kind of gleamed over your website, your blog, like you. I have only one blog, and it's totally about me. So does that mean I'm a narcissist? Maybe. Um, I only put the blog up because I've been told that in order to garner traffic towards your your website or your podcast, you might want to have some blogs. And one of the guys says, you should probably put out one blog a month. So since I started my blog, I still have that one blog about me. But you have a very interesting life experience. So you had a confrontation with police that a lot of us darker skinned people have, and yours is harrowing. Like mine was similar, but I didn't have a gun pulled out on me, and I wasn't in the cab. But
Mhm.
just to talk about it a little bit, how did you move past that police confrontation?
Um, I gotta say, I'll tell you first. It's been something that was in my mind for a long time, and it wasn't something that I told many people. So my wife knows a little bit about it, but it took me a real long time to put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard to type it out. I don't know how I got past it. I just kind of moved on. I really didn't feel like there's anybody I could tell. At this point, I was still kind of living at home. So I was working, if you've read it, I have no car, I'm getting a cab to work, whatever. So I'm still kind of dependent on family and whatever. And at that point, I'm not feeling the best about myself because I'm this man. I'm getting close to 30 and I can't even afford my own place and whatever. So I'm not feeling the best. And I'm working at the Best Buy, this rinky dink place. So I'm not feeling like I can just turn around and tell my mom or anybody about what happened. So this is really something I internalized. It's something that just stuck with me. And I went through that day, survived it, went, I mean, I let it out when I got to work because I felt the most comfortable not having to explain it. Because if I'd gone home, why are you home? No, you going to work, or what are you doing here, or why do you look so dirty, or what's wrong? And I think it felt better to not have to explain it.
Right,
I
right,
just to kind of just deal with it. So I went to work. I wasn't the best, but not that people really cared anyway. So I'm sure I wasn't in the best frame of mind, but whatever. Just make sure you sell those CD players and whatever. We keep it moving. Um, I dealt with it for a while. I'm sure my mood wasn't the best. I'm sure I wasn't as happy as I was. It took me a long time to get to deal with it, to accept it, and to kind of just move on from it. But it's not until I started doing this podcast that I do Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E. and just kind of talking to men that it's like I have to be genuine with this because the whole point of the podcast is for men to be open, be genuine, be vulnerable. And I didn't feel like it was real if I didn't do it myself. So I'm like, I have to say, you know what? And I'm just like, let me write this. And I wrote it and it was weird. And to be honest, I it was kind of harrowing for me too, because I'm kind of reliving it as I'm typing. And I hadn't said it to anybody. So I was experiencing it again for like the first time, for the second time, because I didn't talk about it with anybody. So I'm writing it and I'm like, I'm remembering things because I wrote it. This is the first draft. Then I write it, oh, but then this happened. You put this in. And then the way I had black is like a big word in there. And the way he kept saying it was just important for me to make sure that it was kind of put out front. And I wrote this thing so many times. I'm like, wow, this was rough. Damn, this was terrible. Wow, this I went through some ish. Like, how did I do this? And I don't know how I did, but I did what a lot of us black people do. I just had to. We just had to deal with. I just had to work out.
right.
So I dealt with it. And after reading it, and I will say one thing about it is that since I never told anybody about it, before I put it out, I I'm like, Mom, I have this blog I'm starting and I want to write it, but I want you to read it first because I don't want you to because I'm like, I'm gonna put it on Facebook to kind of build up following and whatever people to see. But I don't want you to be surprised by this. I don't want you to just pick up your phone and just start reading this while you drinking your coffee. So, little preparation. So I sent it to her first. I'm like, read this. I did the same thing for my dad, a few random family members, because it's tough for me to write, tough for me to read. I can't imagine how my parents are going to feel about it. My mom was like distraught, which I expected. My dad was like, "Why didn't you tell me?" My mom, the same thing. Yeah, I just kind of dealt with it. It's something that happens to pretty much. I've yet to meet a black man that doesn't have that story.
Right. And I think that's specifically why police target younger black men because they know that that we're not going to offer a lot of pushback because we
Right.
don't know any better. We're not going to say
Hmm.
like I just watched this video on YouTube where it was where a police had stopped this lawyer, questioned this lawyer for throwing trash in a dumpster, right? It was like, is that your dumpster or whatever? And
Hmm.
they asked for his license, he gave his license, and then the lawyer actually told him, "Don't run my license because I'm not doing anything wrong. Don't run my license." And that's actually one of your rights. But when you're young, you don't know any better. You don't know what your rights are. You
Right.
don't know that you don't
Hmm.
actually have to have an ID. Like you don't have to have an
Exactly.
ID to walk around in this country. But so
Mm.
them asking for your ID is almost like them asking you for your papers. Like where are your
Right.
slave papers? Where are your free papers? That's
Exactly.
exactly what they're doing.
Exactly. It's so crazy when you think about that, right?
Yeah.
The whole thing, the whole police force and your papers, it when you really take a step back and look at it, people are astounded that black people or black men specific are concerned, scared about the police. The police are the same people that were enforcing these racist laws that had hoses of water on us, that had dogs attacking us. And you expect to just, oh yeah, they're just enforcing the law. Do you understand the history?
Right,
Do you
right,
understand what they represented?
right. Eh,
If you really understood, you would understand the I don't know, the struggle, the feeling, the fear.
right.
It's scary. It's really is.
Right. Yeah, so they
Mhm.
what you call it? They I didn't have as harrowing an experience, right? I didn't even realize that it was a problem. So I was running down in my old neighborhood. It's not
Mm.
even really an old neighborhood. We had just moved there, but my mom had moved into my grandmother's house. So it felt old to me, but at the same time I'm new actually living there. But I was there like every weekend or whatever. So it's not like
Okay.
this is some strange place. So I'm running to the bus stop because I'm late for something. And I'm wearing a coat because like it was kind of chilly. I think it was in the late fall. And
Mhm.
I get pulled over while running by this police officer. I'm just
Okay.
running to the bus stop. You put your hand on the hood of the car, search for ID and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but like my confrontation wasn't as harrowing as yours. All he just looked at my ID. He probably ran it or whatever, gave it back. It's like, why are you running? It's like, I'm late for late for the bus. Like, yeah, they always say there's been some break-ins in this neighborhood,
Of
right?
course.
It's
Of
like,
course.
it's always the
Mhm.
excuse that they use. It's not even a huge, like, basically it's a suburban area. It's farther away from like where the urban structure, so you get a lot of mixed of races that live in this area. But still, so he felt comfortable enough to basically lie to me about this because I hadn't heard it.
Mhm.
Like if there was break-ins, because my grandmother had lived there and I visit there often, I probably would have heard of these so-called break-ins, but never had.
Mhm.
So and then he let me go or whatever. There was no gun involved or anything like that. But I had not realized that I had been targeted. Right? It's like, and sometimes it's
Mhm.
like, even though you know your rights and you want to invoke your rights, it's better to just give them the ID so you can just carry on. It's like I don't have time for this. I ain't got
Right.
time for the civil rights struggle. I just want to go to work and make this money.
Exactly. Exactly. It's for a country, this country, America, United States, we're so, we're all about our rights and freedom and everything. It's why is it so hard for your rights to be, enforced, to be
Right, right.
respected? It's easier to just give them up. It
Yeah,
saves time. And
right,
that's that exact same, yeah, that's exactly what you're talking about. I could be like, I don't have to give you ID.
right.
But then that's half hour of them discussing, just give this to me and why are you resisting and blah blah blah, whatever. And it's crazy.
Right, right. Then they calling you the backup or you requesting the
Yeah.
supervisors.
Uh-huh.
Unless you got all day to deal with that. It's a whole
Right.
thing. You got to
Right.
be there are even some wealthy black people that don't want to deal with it. So it's like
Right.
I forgot there was one actor. I think his last name was Washington. Um I can't remember. You probably know him when you see him, but
Mm.
like he used to drive expensive cars. He got tired of being stopped by the police all the time, so he started buying economy cars, and he gets stopped less.
Oh.
Right, right. So you just it's almost you get to the point where you totally give up.
Mm. I'm just gonna drive this Geo Metro so I get where I need
Right,
to
right, right.
without
I
being
just
attacked.
don't want to be bothered, man.
I'm just trying to buy some milk. Like, why am I on the side of this road?
Right,
Get
right,
the
right,
flashlight out of my eyes. What's the
right,
problem? I'm
right.
doing. Mhm.
So, switch gears. There is no segue to this next question. So, are you? I know that you're Haitian. So, you're first generation Haitian, second generation.
So my parents were born in Haiti. I was born here. I was born in. I'm a New Yorker. I was born in New York, Manhattan, born and
Right,
bred.
right.
So I'm an Haitian American. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what they usually
Yeah,
say.
yeah, I'm Haitian American. I've only been to Haiti once, which is like not. I went once when I was 8 or 9, 7 or 8 actually, and I enjoyed it. The only problem is that there's something about me that those mosquitoes love. I got tore up. It was a pro. I came back bit up. It was a mess, and I'm like, I'm not trying to go back. I
Right,
was scarred.
right,
I was scarred, but now I got kids, and I'm like, I got to take it back. Problem is with Haiti, such obviously it's a third world country, but it's politically it's a mess.
right,
It's not the safest place in the world to go. So I want to do it, but it's got to be in a time where I know I'm going to make it back home.
right,
That's
right.
probably.
Yeah,
And I live in Florida, so I'm close. Like I'm a quick shot.
right.
I just have to get to the point where I'm comfortable to go there. But I'll definitely take my wife and kids once. We'll definitely have to experience it.
Right. I
Yeah.
think the
Mhm.
key is that it's politically a mess. I mean, there are some really nice third world countries, but but
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Haiti's
Yeah.
kind of a mess politically right now, and I think they're
Yes.
still
Yeah.
recovering from the last hurricane, and there's a brand new
Yeah.
hurricane that's in the area, and they're
Yeah.
probably
I know.
suffering from some they probably having issues with this new hurricane right now. I
Yeah.
just read about
Oh.
it. For some reason, I hadn't seen it on the news or anything, but it's a
Mm.
hurricane that hit Puerto Rico pretty hard. They're currently
Yeah.
without power, and
Yeah.
I didn't even know about it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's nice area, but being in a tropical area, that stuff just kind of happens, and that's terrible.
right.
It is.
So did you have to learn to speak in your current accent? Like, did you grow up speaking the same way your parents, and then you basically went to school and learned how to
Well,
did you
since
lose your
I
accent in school?
since I was born in New York, I mean, I didn't have one.
Oh,
I speak English again. I mean, and my parents for a little while, I think they tried to speak Creole, which is what typically Haitians speak. But after a while, they kind of gave up. So they spoke. So we were just speaking English in the house. And I eventually went to this Haitian academy in New York City that I used to go to, and they were teaching French there. But eventually, like I can't really speak. I can understand French. I can't speak it now. So I've never really had an accent.
right,
I've
right.
always just, I guess at best, I have an Eastern sounding, voice.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
tell I'm a New Yorker, but there's no Caribbean to me when I speak.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
There was something that you said on one of your later podcasts that I heard, and you said that when you was growing up, uh, you you couldn't completely identify with being black or completely identify with being black because of the being white because of the
Mhm.
things that you like because you liked a lot of things that like pop music and stuff like that. That's not it's not generated by black people, but you liked it
Right.
anyway. And
Hmm.
I imagine that your speech had something to do with that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll answer that, but I'll give you an example. So I've before I kind of found myself in my 30s and had like a real job and like kind of an adult thing, I worked in random really stores. So like Best Buy. But I used to work in a mall and Suncoast Motion Picture. And it was just a store that sold movies. It was a movie store. And I used to work in there. And that it's not even work for me. I love movies. I'll talk movies all day. So I'm basically there selling stuff. What was always interesting is that people would call in, do you have this? Do you have that? One time, this guy called in looking for some particular movie, and I talked to him, and we have it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to hold it for you. He's like, oh, what's your name? I'm Harvey, blah, blah, blah. Hour or so later, he comes in, and he comes to me because I'm behind the register. He's like, hey, I'm looking for Harvey. I spoke to him. I have this movie. He's like, hey, I'm Harvey. How you? And the look, you? Like in his head, he's like, oh, I know he really wanted to say, no, 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 no. The guy I spoke to was clearly white.
Right.
Where's that Harvey? And I'm like, no, it's me. And he didn't say that, but it's like you can tell as a black person, you can tell when there's some confusion. And I knew exactly what it was. It's
Right.
like I didn't sound black.
Right.
Like I
Right.
should have
Right.
said like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Your movies, yeah, your movies here. Let me go in the back and get that
Yeah,
Negro.
right,
Like I
right,
didn't sound
right,
that.
right, right.
No, I speak English. And like he left, and I'm laughing because he was so confused.
Right, right.
That and I've always had that experience. But growing up, it's the same thing because I grew up in Long Island, nice area, pretty good schools. But I grew up 19. I was born in 1974. I'm an 80s kid. I love 80s music. My favorite decade. So I love Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and Whitesnake, and I love that rock. I love that 80s big hair stuff. And eventually I made my way to R&B and hip hop where I reside now, where I live. But that's what I grew up listening to. But I was the only black kid I knew who listened to that stuff. And at that point, I'm still trying to being black is a thing. Being black is biological, but it's also like a way of like how you are. And it's hard enough growing up being a teenage boy, nerdy, short, fat. I'm not cool. Girls don't like me anyway. So now the black girls aren't gonna like me because I'm not black enough. Because I almost can't relate to what they listen to or what they watch. The white girl, you're not really, because you're a black guy. I'm not the athlete, I'm not the buff looking one
Right,
that they,
right.
So I'm in the middle. I'm just in this space where nobody wants me. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, nobody's trying to deal with me. So that's what I got. I had the music, I was pretty much alone. The shows, pretty much alone. Everything that I liked there's really nobody that I felt that I could say that to, relate that to. So that's what it was. I grew up that way, and then obviously my speak, the way I talk. I don't sound like I'm from the hood, which
Right.
apparently all of us are supposed to sound like, and that's not. And yeah, but it's just something that I dealt with, and it took me a long time to be comfortable enough to be like, you know what, these people don't determine what black is. You
Right.
don't get to tell me what black is. Black is whatever I am because
Right.
I'm black.
Right, right,
And
right.
once I got comfortable with that, I was just a lot better off. It kind of coincided with the fact that I just kind of discovered R&B, late 80s, early 90s R&B, but I was getting into jazz because I'm a huge jazz person. So I got to jazz, I got to R&B and stuff like that, and that other stuff I kind of moved away from. I still love it when I hear it, but my comfort level, I think, when I kind of switched off to what was typically more black,
Right.
made me more comfortable being it. And then that led to just it's ironic, once I felt more comfortable in my blackness, then the girls I started talking to felt more comfortable talking to me and they weren't black.
Right, right, right.
Because then I was that novelty. Oh, look, first black guys. And so I had a nice run there. But yeah, we go through so much as black kids, black boys growing up and trying to figure out who you are, what you are. Your environment determines a lot of it. And I was just trying to fit in. So yeah, the music, the movies, what I read, The Godfather is my favorite book, all this stuff. But all within all that, I'm as black as it gets, man.
Right, right.
That's what
Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
I had asked you about that because I had similar things. The only thing is that I liked it all. Like I like the R&B and I like what you call it, the yacht rock as we call it today.
Stop it. Kenny Loggins.
Right, right.
Michael
right.
McDonald.
It's like,
Stop it.
they like it too. They might front like they don't like it, but they like it too.
They could no, they won't say it, but
Right.
don't let what is it? I'm trying anything. This Is It by Kenny Loggins.
Right.
Jump on. Everybody's bumping to that.
Especially when you got those duets with Patti LaBelle, especially when you have for a long time there was a lot of music that I didn't know that white people were singing that it was like, whoa, Hall & Oates sang that.
That's my telling you my favorite duo that the 80s. Hall & Oates.
Right, right.
Oh, 80s just my God, The Police, they were so good. Oh yeah, excellent music. I feel you.
Yeah. So I liked it all. My first album was that I bought myself was George Michael's Faith. That's where I was at that time.
George Michael is for me, when you talk about like the music, like for me, it's George Michael, it's Phil Collins, it's Hall & Oates, it's all these people like how did they know who they hang out with? Michael McDonald,
Yeah.
the Doobie Brothers by extension, like all that music. Faith is a phenomenal album.
Yeah.
My favorite album of the 80s. And I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan. So I've had whole discussions with
Right.
people like, it's got to be Thriller. And I'm like, that's not even Michael's best. Personally, I think, no, I'm Off the Wall's better than Thriller. But I will say Faith is the best album of that decade.
Right.
It's beautiful. Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
that was a. I remember the controversy around one of his songs.
I Want Your Sex, right?
Yes,
Was it I Want Your Sex?
it was
Yep.
that the first version, because
Hmm.
remember there are actually three parts of that song. So the first
Yep,
part,
that's
because
right.
it was in Beverly Hills Cop 2. No, was it that one?
That's
No, not that
it
one.
wasn't the first one. It was in one of them. I don't
Was
know.
it Beverly
That's a
Hills
good
Cop,
question.
or was it the one he did with Nick Nolte? It was one of those.
No, it wasn't that old. No, no. What is that? No, it's not Trading Places. It's 48 Hours.
Yeah, so I think
It's
it was
not
in.
48 Hours. That's
I'm trying to
early.
think. It was
That's too.
one called Another 48 Hours. It was either.
Oh, it was the second one.
I
Oh, okay.
I think so. I can't remember. I'm going to have to
You're probably right.
reinvestigate. But yeah,
Probably
I know
right.
it was one of the Eddie Murphy movies that he did,
Okay.
and that was a huge controversy over that song. It's like, how dare they say sex like out in the open?
All comfortable and stuff.
Right,
What?
right,
Sex. Whatever. Yeah.
So let me switch gears. Another bad segue. Where'd you get the ideas? Like, first of all, amazing that you would even have the stamina and the gumption to have two podcasts. So where did you get the
Um,
idea of doing the first podcast? Which one was the first one?
so the first one is Love is Black. That's a podcast with my wife. So when basically COVID is the reason. We're home, we're trapped in our house, there's not much we can do. And we had always said that we wanted to do a podcast. And basically we had nothing else to do. So like we always had interesting conversations. Politically, we don't agree on a lot of things. So we can always have, educated discussions about things. So let's just get a mic and talk. So we did that. And for us, we're like, let's have a podcast about Black love, Black relationships. Because if you watch enough TV, you don't see very much positive Black love. And I'm like, we could definitely talk about that. So we're 4 seasons in. We're in our 4th season recording now. The whole first season was just us talking about us. And we've got our things. I'm 10 years older than my wife. She had 2 kids when I met her, and and then we had 2 since. We had all these things that we could talk about, and we're 2 Black people trying, in a relationship, married and stuff. So there was so much that we could talk about. So we did that. Second season, we talked to couples because we like a good love story. So come on in and tell us how you met. Tell us how you proposed, all that good stuff. We had a lot of fun with that. Season 3, a mixture of the first 2. And then this season has been a lot more of just us talking about stuff. But at the end of the 3rd season, I'm like, I've a lot of stuff I started to notice, things that were like in me. How men are seen, how Black men are seen, how men are seen in relationships, in the world in general, how we don't talk about things. And I'm like, I feel like I want to do my own podcast. My wife is not as much in it as I am. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do my own. So I'm like, I started. I did my own, and I really enjoyed it. And I like the idea of talking to men, opening up. So for a while, we're doing them both. And it doesn't feel like work to me, so I don't mind. And I like doing this one. I like doing mine, talking about things. And it's kind of blown up into something more because now I'm getting men on here and we're having real discussions, opening up about what's going on in life, which is what I really enjoy doing. And then from then on in, I meet other people because I have another podcast that I do. It's called Bracket Bastards. That's how I ended up meeting our boy from Pardon My Fandom, is because I love talking movie, music, and all this stuff. And he heard me there, and he heard me talking about how much I hate Will Smith, and that led to a whole nother thing. So I just like talking, but the baby, Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E, that's the one that I appreciate the most because I feel like it's necessary,
Right,
especially for us Black men to talk. And it's easy to do them both because I love talking. It's not even work at all.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Me, it's like the recording is the fun part. Which is
Right.
why I like being guests on other podcasts. It's like I just put on a
Mm.
microphone, I just talk for a little bit. I was like, well, my job is done. And then,
Yep.
but
That's
then
the easy part.
when I'm hosting the
Right.
show, it's like, oh, then I got to do the editing, and then the
Mm.
promotion, and then
Mm.
all the
Yeah.
posting. It's a lot. It
Yeah.
almost sounds like the movie that we're about to get into.
Mhm.
All right, so speaking of which, that's a much better segue. Let's go ahead
Mm.
and take a short break, and we're going to talk about the movie that we talk about. Once again, thanks for coming over here. There's a show right now called Made for TV Movie Podcast, so I have an ad for them. So I'm going
Okay.
to introduce people to this ad. If you want to listen to Beth and Kirsten from Made for TV Movie Podcast, you can find them. If you want to find them, you can give them a Goog at #MFTVMC Podcast. This is them right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are the hosts of the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. Beth, we've been friends for a long time.
We sure have, Kay, since before Rachel kissed Ross for the first time.
It's true. And since we share a love of all things TV, we decided to team up to review our favorite TV movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
You don't need to watch the movie. We did that for you.
You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Deezer, and iHeartRadio.
And find us on our socials.
Join us in our Facebook group, Made for TV Movie Club Podcast. Follow us on Insta at made_for_TV_movie_club. Tweet us at TV Movie Club Pod 1.
Or give us a Goog at #MFTVMC Podcast, and you'll find us.
We'll see you soon in the clubhouse.
And we're back. Thank you for joining us once again. And so we're going to talk about the movie that we had both watched just recently. And I have to admit, I watched this movie. I remember watching this movie, and I remember some parts from it. For whatever reason, on this rewatch, I had no memory of it. And it's almost like watching a brand new movie. So the movie that we're talking about is City Slickers. Harvey, why don't you tell us about this movie?
City Slickers. Opening credits. So, give you a little synopsis. Mitch is a middle-aged big city radio ad salesman. He and his friends Ed and Phil are having midlife crises. They decide that the best birthday gift is to go on a 2-week holiday in the Wild West, driving cattle from New Mexico to Colorado. There they meet cowboy Curly, who not only teaches them how to become real cowboys, but also one or two other things about life in the open air of the West. By Sami El Taher. No, that's just what that read. Okay, that's where you got that from.
Yeah.
By the way, that is the bio.
Right. And that's I got his little what you call a synopsis at IMDb because
okay.
I was not well enough to write it myself. Anyways, this movie was released June 7th in 1991, produced by Castle Rock Entertainment, Nielsen Entertainment, and Face Production. It grossed over $124 million in the U.S. and Canada, and over $179 million in worldwide on a $27 million budget. And it had great reviews. So yeah, and this is all true. So why don't you start us off by telling us who starred in this movie?
Starring the man of this movie, that would be Billy Crystal, playing the part of Mitch Robbins. You know Billy Crystal from SNL, from all the stuff he's done with Whoopi and Robin. But movies, stuff like Forget Paris, which is probably my favorite Billy Crystal movie. I love Forget Paris. Analyze This, Running Scared, which is another great movie. Oh, I love Running Scared.
Yeah.
No disrespect to anything else, but Running Scared is great.
It is
so he's
great.
the star.
It is great. And it was one of the earlier shows. I did that a couple of months ago, Running Scared. And yeah, it was one of my favorite movies.
I think I saw that on your list, and I was looking through the stuff that you've done. I'm like, I love that movie. I'm like, him and Gregory Hines, because it just slipped right into Michael McDonald because he's got the best song on that thing, on that soundtrack. I'm like, yeah, I love it. Perfect.
Also, we have Jack Palance. He played Curly Washburn. You've seen him in Shane, Batman, and one of my favorite shows growing up, Ripley's Believe It or Not. And what I did not realize, because he had a co-host that was a woman, I always assumed that it was his wife. It's actually his daughter, Holly Palance, and I didn't realize that.
Oh wow!
And I watched that show obsessively, and it's like, even when he's talking, he's just a host of a show, but he's acting. It's like he's got this thing with his breathing when he's talking. And so it's like when he's talking about Ripley's Believe It or Not, it's not he just can't say it like a regular person. It's more like, yes, and now we've seen the uncharted caves.
It's his voice.
Right. We'll be right back on Ripley's Believe It or Not, right?
Oh my God! He had the best voice. He had the best voice.
Yeah, he did the same thing in Batman. He just loves that.
Oh my God! And then he won an Oscar for this.
Yeah.
He won an Oscar for this, which was so great. I remember that.
Right.
He was amazing. We also have a man that is near and dear to my heart because I'm an 80s kid, but that's Daniel Stern. He played Phil Berquist. We all know him from Home Alone, Born in East LA, The Wonder Years. He was the voiceover. Oh, goodness. One of my favorite shows. I'm a black kid watching this, but I felt everything Kevin Arnold was going through watching this.
Absolutely.
And he related, obviously it's script, but he related so well. That's how I will always remember Daniel Stern. I mean, we love this movie, but to me, he is always that voice.
Yeah.
Perfect. He said, So, yeah, but he was amazing. And he is amazing. He's still alive, so I'm saying that. But I love Daniel Stern. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Up next is Bruno Kirby. He played Ed Furillo. He was in When Harry Met Sally, Good Morning Vietnam, and Sleepers.
He was also in Godfather 2. Yes. Great. Then you have Patricia Wettig, who plays Barbara Robbins. That's Mitch's wife. St. Elsewhere, 30-something, 80s kid here. St. Elsewhere, one of the great 80s dramas. 30-something, phenomenal drama. Alias, another great show. I recognize all these. In fact, the next person who you're going to say, I have a real connection to this show.
Right.
You have no idea. But go ahead.
Yeah. Patricia had done a lot of TV shows, and I missed most of them. But yeah, I know that those are the things that people would know her from. So up next is Helen Slater. She played Bonnie Rayburn. We know her best as Supergirl, but she's also been on The Secret of My Success and The Legend of Billie Jean. I don't know if The Legend of Billie Jean or Supergirl is where she gets the most recognition from.
She probably gets, well, for me, because I'm an 80s kid, and my favorite movie of the 80s is The Legend of Billie Jean. I absolutely love her. She's fair as fair. Like, the movie is so
right.
Great soundtrack, but she was amazing in that. I remember her from Secret of My Success, Michael J. Fox, that's good. Supergirl, it's fun. She had a good run of 80s movies.
Right.
But I remember Helen Slater for a lot of these things.
Right.
And obviously from this movie. So she had a nice run. The Legend of Billie Jean is where I remember her above anything else. Next, Noble Willingham. That is Clay Stone. The Last Boy Scout. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Fire in the Sky.
Yeah, not as familiar with him, but the whole movie was fun. So Tracy Walter, he played Cookie. He's been in Repo Man, Conan Destroyer, and Aaron Brockovich. He's always a trip.
Josh Mostel, he played Barry Shalowitz. Jesus Christ Superstar, Billy Madison, and The Money Pit. Oh, The Money Pit is fun.
Right.
Early Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Early Tom Hanks. Oh my God. Right. Well, that was it Shelley? Right before that must have been right in the height of when she left Cheers.
Yeah.
But
that's right after she left Cheers.
Because she biggest mistake of her life. Should have kept her butt on that show.
Right.
Should have never left. So bad.
She thought she was going to have a huge filming career. She wasn't ready.
And then she did True Beverly Hills, and then it was over. I'm like, why? Right. Don't do that.
David Paymer, he played Ira Shalowitz. He's been in State of Maine, Get Shorty, and The American Presidents.
American President. One of my favorite movies. I love Aaron Sorkin, so I love West Wing. I love The American President. Good stuff. Very good stuff. Bill Henderson. He played Ben Jessup in Clue. We know him from Clue. God, love Clue. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension. Terrible. And Maverick.
Blasphemer.
Maverick Mel. Oh my God! Come on, that movie is questionable. Questionable.
No, it's supposed to be bad.
Oh, then they did. Oh yes, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. An Oscar for being just what you're supposed to be. So they get that.
Up next is Jeffrey Tambor. He played Lou. He's been in How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Hellboy, and The Hangover. So Jeffrey Tambor, I remember him. I think he played like the boss. So he's been in a lot of movies. Like when you recognize his face, like as soon as he shows up, it's like, oh yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, character actor. Yeah, he always plays that part. Always.
Right.
Same thing I think with David Paymer.
Right.
That but I remember him. So next, Phil Lewis. No, I said that already. Phil Lewis. Steve Jessup from Heathers. Another great 80s movie. Kicking and Screaming and I Spy.
Yeah. That's the new I Spy with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah. Shouldn't have done that.
Right. I hadn't seen it. So, and he's been in a bunch of movies, so he'll be all right. Up next is Kyle Secor. They've been in Drop Zone, The Purge, and Election Year.
Purge. The first one was good. Everything else was questionable after that, at least to me. Should have just stuck with the first one.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And then Yeardley Smith, who played Nancy, who we know from The Simpsons. That's that voice. You know it.
Right.
Another good one. As good as it gets. Great. Jack Nicholson, Oscar-winning performance there. And Maximum Overdrive, Stephen King, like early Stephen King.
Right.
Before there was Green Mile and Shawshank and all this stuff that people love, Maximum Overdrive is Stephen King. And it's great. It's a fun 80s movie.
Right. Well, you know what's funny? It's like I hadn't realized that Nancy has so many credits when I'm going through. It wasn't just The Simpsons, and she had been working on movies and TV shows while she was doing The Simpsons. And the only thing I remember that outside of The Simpsons that she had did before I wrote this was there was a early Fox show called Herman's Head. So
that's
Herman's
right.
Head
I remember Herman's Head. Yes.
Right,
okay.
right. But yeah, when I looked, I was like, oh my God. Like when she appeared on the screen, I was like, oh my God, it's Yeardley Smith.
I know you. I know your voice. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
So this movie was directed by Ron Underwood. He's also directed Tremors, Mighty Joe Young, and The Adventures of Pluto Nash. And what was interesting about him is that, he started off strong, especially with Tremors. And I'm not exactly sure about the reception of Mighty Joe Young, but I hadn't heard anything that was like terrible about it. But he was progressing worse and worse. And the thing that killed his career as a movie director was The Adventures of Pluto Nash. And then he was banished to television. When I say banished, I'm telling you that Pluto Nash is $100 million movie. And it barely made $1 million. He was like, "Yeah, you cannot pass." And he was, from henceforth, you return to television, never to come this way again.
Go stay over there and do 23 minutes of TV. You don't give a director like $100 million budget, and then you come out with this trash. And that says a lot because. I mean, Eddie Murphy was in that, right?
Not only is it Eddie Murphy, but the movie looks good. Like, it must have been, they must have known it was bad, but the trailer makes this movie look really good. So for the trailer to be that good, and then you go, and it has Eddie Murphy in it, and you go and it's bad. I was like, oh my God, that must have been really bad.
That says a lot. He should have made like $5-10 million just on people going.
Right.
Just on name value alone.
Right.
Like that's Will Smith and Wild Wild West.
Right.
That movie was atrocious. Atrocious. But it made like $100 million before people were like, dude, it's terrible. Don't go. It's bad. It's bad. And it's like the same thing. Eddie Murphy should carry a movie, but no. that looked.
yeah. I think that Will Smith was high enough in his popularity, and he carried the movie well enough. And it had that other actor. I think his name is Kevin Kline. Is that his
Yep.
name? I
Yes, it
think
is.
I think that made the movie at least watchable to a lot of people. But
Mhm.
it's still like you said, it wasn't a great movie, and but
It was bad, and it was a summer blockbuster. So it's one of those everybody rushed to see the movie,
right,
and by the time you tell your friends that it's terrible,
right, they've
a
already
bunch of
seen
people went and saw it, and that's how it made any money at all.
right.
Oh my goodness! Oh no.
Wow.
Let's see. This movie was written by Lowell Gantz and Babalu Mandel. Gantz is known for Splash, fantastic. Other Tom Hanks there. Robots and Parenthood. Now he must have been a co-writer because I know Parenthood was Steve Martin. I know he wrote most of that. Mandel is known for this is 3 really good movies. Multiplicity is fantastic. I love Multiplicity. Can't find it anywhere, but I would watch it. A League of Their Own, which is I'm a baseball fan. It's my favorite sport. A League of Their Own is one of my favorite movies. Love it. And then Mr. Saturday Night, which is not one of Billy Crystal's best, but still a good movie. So he had nice little pedigree here for Mandel.
Right. So the music was by Mike Sherman. He has 70 credits to his name. He made music for JBL. Is that supposed to be JBL?
LBJ, I think.
Yeah, 8 LBJ. Yeah. Undiagnosed
JBL,
dyslexia.
you're a wrestling fan. I can see that.
The Bucket List and Hairspray. So that's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying the show, you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our refurbished website, backlickcinema.com/shop. And as you know, autumn is here, so go check it out. And that's it. We're going to transition to another segment, and that other segment is the best segment, our favorite parts. And we're back. We are back to talk about our favorite parts of the movie, the things that gets our blood pumping. When we talk about our friends about this movie, these are the parts that we are going to talk about. So Harvey, why don't you start us off? Tell me some of your favorite parts about City Slickers.
So one of my favorite parts. So I obviously watched this recently just to kind of get it back, but I didn't really have to try that hard. It clicked with me pretty fast. I'm a baseball fan. Baseball is my favorite sport. So what I'm going to just backtrack for a second. I've done a lot of podcasts and we talk about stuff. And I did a podcast yesterday. I was talking with some friends and we did this whole Stephen King movie bracket. We took a bunch of Stephen King movies and narrowed it down to the winner. And what ended up winning, I don't know when this is going to come out, but I'm probably not going to ruin anything. The one that won was Stand By Me, which is fantastic Stephen King. And I love Stand By Me because at its core, it's friendship. It's boys being friends. When I was watching, again, City Slickers is, to me, the adult version of Stand By Me. It's friendship. And it's not stuff that you really see that much. Men having other men as friends. The fact that they're on these horses and my favorite part is them just kind of getting the herd going and they're on their horses and they're talking. And each of them, they do this whole thing, best day of your life, worst day of your life, that thing. And that whole conversation is not one that many men have. No, men don't have somebody they feel comfortable enough to talk to about things. So the fact that what they're saying isn't that important, even I know what it is, but it's the fact that these 3 friends who've been friends forever are talking about stuff. And even in there, Billy Crystal's, his character is talking about his wife found a lump. And the guy's like, you never said anything. So like, even that is this kind of, it shows it. These are his best friends and their wives know each other and the kids know each other and everything. But even that, he didn't even say anything. And that's a scary situation for a husband, for a man, to see your significant other. Breast cancer is a real possibility and he didn't even say anything. And I watched that thinking, I enjoy the story. I enjoy this camaraderie that they're having, but it's it's like it just shows where we are as men in terms of conversation, in terms of communication with each other. So to me, that's my favorite part. The reason I mentioned baseball is because it's something you're probably going to mention, but he wears a Mets hat through the whole movie, and he is not a Mets fan. He is clearly a Yankee fan. Clearly a Yankee fan. And what's funny is that I'm a New Yorker, and sports radio started in New York. He went on a sports radio station, and somebody gave him a lot of ish for him wearing a Mets hat in that movie when he was a Yankee fan. Like, we take our sports seriously. He was playing a fictional character. Why you wearing that hat? You not a fan of the Mets. You don't know. You don't know about a struggle. You don't remember some 1962 when we were terrible, winning the World Series in 60. You don't know. You're just wearing the hat because it was part of the script. Like, no, that's terrible. So to me, my favorite part is that the men just kind of talking and walking on their horses. That's really, I enjoy that. It always takes me back.
Right.
Because a lot of men don't have that friend who they could just tell stuff to.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think some of the moments that I thought were like the most impactful to me is like the very opening, the running of the bulls. It just kind of, to me, that this struck me as ridiculous. So like they're doing this because they have a midlife crisis. It's like, this is your midlife crisis. This is your solution to run with the bulls. But at the same time, I kind of think it's cool because it's like now the bulls are getting the righteous revenge. It's like the opposite of bullfighting. So I was like, well, they have bullfighting, but then they also have the running of the bulls. So that's cool. At least they're trying to balance it out a little bit. But these are really, I didn't realize how small these bulls were. These must be like adolescent bulls. These aren't like the giant beasts that you normally see in like something like bullfighting. Because they, I guess otherwise they wouldn't have a chance, right?
Right.
So, the other two friends are able to get out of the way, but Billy Crystal's character, he gets got, and he has to go. He has to go to the doctor, and it's like friends being friends. Takes a picture of the surgery, like why he's getting sewed up. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what friends do.
Men being men, we're gonna support you, but we're gonna give you a lot of ish for it. So I agree with that.
And then where they talk about he's 39 years old. I have marked that because, man, I would kill to be 39 again. It's like, that's when you're having your crisis, man. You're still young, son.
That's one thing that I've had talking about when I do these podcasts, the whole midlife crisis thing. And I feel like we're not going to have as many men with midlife crises because I feel like we just kind of grew up, not us, because I'm old enough that I wasn't part of that group, but we kind of grew up, take care of your family, get a job that takes care of the family, and just do what you have to. But you're not doing what you want to. And that's what that movie is. Like, this what you have to do, take care of the family, and eventually you're like 47, 48. Like, I didn't want to work at this newspaper. I didn't want to do this. I wanted to be a sculptor. I wanted to do something else, right? And that's what it is. And I wanted to have a nice car. And that's what the midlife crisis. So I watched that thing, and that's hilarious. But it's not going to happen because marriage isn't nearly as popular as it used to be. Now men are just like, I don't have to get married. I don't have to have kids. I'm just going to do what I want. I'm going to be 21, and I'm just going to be a broke painter, and I'm going to do what I want, as opposed to maybe being in a job that I don't want to be in and then just breaking out and doing something else. But that movie, for the time, it fits.
I think for each of the characters have like a different experiences. I think like the Mitchell character, and I think let's see, the Bruno character, Bruno Kirby's character, Ed. I think they're doing what they want to do. I think it's really Phil, who is not Phil is in this,
he got trapped. Trapped isn't the word, because he didn't have to sleep with her,
job.
But
he's
he got
definitely
caught
not
up
where he wants to be. But like Mitch, he works at an ad agency. He's doing what he wants to do. I think that like when he started out, like when he went to school because it's something what he wanted to do. He worked for a company that he wanted to do, and like when he had a conversation with Lou, his boss, he was like, and he plays like Lou comes in and plays that tape of this ad that Mitch had bought. It's like, we used to make fun of guys who brought in trash like this. What is wrong with you? So it's like, I think he's just it has transformed from a dream to a rat race, and he's looking for something
Yeah.
outside to try to fix
hmm
that. It's like, and then they have the conversation where, do you want something outside the marriage, right? I think that's something his wife brought up. Is like, you trying to get somebody younger, like somebody else might have done, like Ed's trying to do what Phil,
hmm
they found out Phil was doing.
hmm
So yeah, obviously those conversations is going to come up.
That was fun. I'm trying to think of what else. The only other thing, one thing, and it's not a part, it's like a small piece, but it's important because we're talking about Phil, and he mentions it. And what's strange is for me is because I watch everything with this kind of male point of view, and especially now because I have this podcast where I'm talking to men about men and stuff like that. So whenever I see stuff, I kind of see from that view. But Phil literally talks about a part where he's like, you know what, he didn't have the best relationship with his father. His father wasn't the warmest of men, but we could always talk about baseball. And
Right,
he just brings that up, and it's
right,
true.
right,
Men, our fathers are not brought up to be emotional and intimate and hug and kiss and whatever. We're very at arm's length. I'm just taking care of you type of thing. But that crystallized it to me.
right,
I mean, I remember the first times that he's talking about that. We weren't cool. We weren't the best of friends. But if it was baseball, then we could talk about it. And he mentions one other time when when he got married and his dad looked at him and winked at him. He's like, I'm a man now.
right,
It's
right, right, right.
these little steps that we take as men growing up. That's why I love this movie, because this is very much the male experience. Men, the stuff that we go through and how we deal with the problems and important moments for us. It really does a really good job
Right,
crystallizing while being absolutely hilarious along the way.
right,
It's
right.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That all of that. Like, I didn't have a fantastic relationship with my father, and none of the
Mhm.
men, like even with the men who I have had great relationships with, it wasn't like all this. There were no hugs, there were no proclamations of "I love you" or nothing like that. Well, I'm trying to work it in to my generation. I'm trying to work that in with my own son, because
Mhm.
he needs to know that I love him, and I say it. It's like I do it through actions and stuff like that to take care of him.
Mhm.
But I also say
Mhm.
it verbally, right? Because it's not enough to
Right.
just do. You got
It's
to say
really
it so that
important.
they know.
Yeah.
They're not gonna go throughout life with saying my father never said he loved me. They
Right. They need to hear it.
they,
Hell, embarrass him with it. Do
right,
that.
right, right.
But
Oh,
the
that's
more
not
he hears it,
right.
that's
That's
the
my
point.
favorite. That's my favorite moment in Spider-Man and what was this? Into the Spider-Verse. I think that's what it's
Oh
called.
yeah.
The animation,
hmm
right? When his
Yes.
father drops him off at school, and he says on the speakers, "I love you, son." He's like, "Okay, Dad, gotta say it back on the speaker for the whole street to hear." Right? That was a wonderful moment. So,
That's what we get the joy of as parents. It is our
right,
job.
right.
It's part of if I have to raise you and feed you, I get to do this stuff, and you're gonna have to just take it.
Right,
We all
right,
had it
right,
at some point. So yes, that's my favorite Spider-Man. Spider is so good. So
right,
good.
right.
Mhm.
So, and then there was this one part where Mitch, he goes to the school, his son's school, for like career day, and
Oh.
he talks about basically your decades in life, and how you grow into it. And it's like, and by your 50s you're this way, and then by your 60s you have to go into a procedure, but it's a surgery, it's not a procedure. I was like, oh my god, I'm going through that right now. He's describing my entire, it's like, I got 3 close family members, including myself, who has to go into some kind of medical procedure, right? Or
Right.
surgery or something like that. It's a whole bunch of stuff. It's like, oh, it's like we're all getting older, and we all have to deal with these medical challenges. And then
hmm
so that was incredibly impactful. Describing basic life events through the decades of your life, and kids are not
Yep.
getting it.
hmm
um Another gag that I
That was
really
fun.
like was so remember when they first get to the ranch, and there are no horses and whatnot, and the guy's giving them, the ranchers, he's giving them the presentation about what they're going to be doing and whatnot, and he opens up with like, my family's been at this ranch for 5 generations, and his wife is behind him, holds
Mm.
up 4 fingers. So I like the gags in the movie. It's funny, right? Because even though this is basically a comedy movie, it's not as many gags. It's really concentrating on telling the story. But when the
Yeah,
gags come through, it's really awesome. So
yeah.
what did you think of Jack Palance?
Oh, he was great. He fit that role absolutely perfectly. He's got the voice for it. He's got the look. Everything that that role needed. Strong, badass look, but and I think all of it works with his voice. He's got this look. We know the man was old when he's doing it, so I'm not taking him so seriously as like he's gonna kill me. But for the part that he's playing, he's doing it well. I believed him as a cowboy, and I believe that he's gone through some stuff. So he can be hard as the cowboy, but still a man and still be emotional. And that was really important. But I know I remember as a kid watching it. Oh, I like really good writing and stuff, but I can kind of see stuff coming. Like 5 minutes into meeting his character, I'm like, they're gonna kill him. I know they're gonna kill him. Like it's gonna have to. It have characters like that come and go. They
Right,
come
right,
in, they do something great, they teach you something, and then you feel the heartache when they go away
right,
because you
right,
need that kind of climactic thing. So
right,
I'm like, how they gonna do it?
right.
But I remember, but I remember he was a great character. He was perfect for that role and deserved that Oscar.
Right.
Remember him winning that Oscar and doing the one arm push ups on
Yeah.
the Oscar stage? That's just a bad man.
I remember
It's a
that.
bad.
That was amazing.
Yeah,
Like,
it
yeah,
was.
he's like, I'm still fit, right?
And legit, like he was doing like some
Right,
Sylvester
right,
Stallone. I'm like,
right,
I can do those.
right,
And
right,
like,
right,
yeah, I got that.
right.
But he was great. He was perfectly stayed for that part. He
What was
deserved
really
that.
great was his entrance. So he had two of his cowboys, and they're harassing first the girl, and then they start harassing the guys that are trying to interrupt. So they're
Hmm.
harassing Mitch and whatnot. So
Hmm.
then he all of a sudden rope comes around the dude's neck.
Hmm.
His neck is lassoed, and then
Hmm. Snatched them up.
silhouetted by the sun is Curly. So that
Yep.
was like an amazing scene right there. And then he comes around,
Hmm.
and what I really liked about Curly is like he's not typical of the tough cowboy. So most cowboys, like especially if it's played by Clint Eastwood, because he was actually they wanted to get Clint Eastwood, but he was too expensive.
Right.
Never grinning, just gritting at people all the gritting at people all the time. That's what we call that expression, gritting. When you're just frowning at people, having your mad face on all the time, and that's how Clint Eastwood does it. But Curly was different, and then he was grinning all the time. He always had that grin
Hmm.
on his face, like because
But it was a scary
right,
grin
it was a
though because
scary grin.
he's not really smiling. Yeah.
Right. It was a grin that said, I know something that you don't know. And in this case, it's true because they're there to learn about how to be cowboys, how to run cattle. But his grin was also something else. It was like something deeper than that. It was also something like, I know about how to run these cows, and I know about life, and I'm gonna keep that to myself, right?
Hmm. Hmm. So true. So true. Hmm.
Right. So
Hmm.
yeah, I like the way he talked about he had that alone time with Mitch, and
Yeah.
when
Hmm.
they had to go and rescue the horse. It was funny how Mitch was chosen too, because Mitch had caused the problem in the first place.
Yep.
That
Hmm.
was one of the things. Even though I didn't remember most of the movie, that was one of the things I remember him pulling out his coffee maker, talking about we don't have to live like animals, and then he caused a stampede. Didn't realize that he caused a stampede, causing all kinds of havoc. And then and
Hmm.
Curly points him out, like, you started this, and you're going to help me fix it. So
Hmm.
so they had that heart to heart chat, and where Curly was like, I didn't have time for a woman or anything like that. So
Hmm.
that was a great moment in that movie for
Hmm.
with them together like that.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a great moment. You get that, and what's the one thing, and he kind of tells you, but he doesn't really tell you. You don't really get it.
Right, right,
The
right.
whole and the quintessential, the guys getting the herd there, and it's such a good story. Like they do the job, they get the herd there, and yeah, don't worry, we're gonna sell this meat for some good money. So they did all that just to bring the lambs to the slaughter. It's just it's a good story, and it's the friends, it's the three of them, and they have the real good shots of them just riding down, and they feel they're so successful, they feel accomplished, they got something done.
Right.
And they learned about themselves. And it turns out the wife was right. Go.
Right.
Get 2 weeks, get away from me, and go find your smile and such.
Right. That was a powerful
Which,
moment too.
yeah. For me as a wrestling fan, the whole found your smile thing, because I remember somebody lost it and then Billy Crystal found his. I feel like it connects. If you're a wrestling fan, you remember Shawn Michaels saying that he lost his smile. So that's the whole wrestling reference to me. But I enjoyed that movie in general. It's just fun.
Right.
It's just fun. Mm-hmm.
There's the other relationships like Ira and Steve. So Ira and Steve Jessup. They played the ice cream kingpins and whatnot, and so they
basically
had
Ben and Jerry.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they had that competition with Mitch about pairing ice cream with meals,
right?
And at first,
and it's funny, like they don't lose. Like whatever they say is right.
But it was funny, right? Because at first he threw out, Mitch threw out, what ice cream goes with beans and Frank? And it was like, and one of them was like, "Don't waste my time," right?
And he threw his plate at him, like, "This is all you got."
Right.
And then he's like, "Okay, serious." And he's like, "Sea bass."
Right.
This sauteed.
Right.
Like, he goes, and the music changes, it gets all serious. And then everybody's sweating. And I don't remember what he said. And then he's like, whoa.
Yeah,
like
right.
Like,
it was like Mitch is talking about what about sea pass and potatoes gratin and I don't know, string beans or something like that. What ice cream goes with that? And the dude was like sweating and whatnot, trying to figure out what ice cream goes with that meal, and he figures it out. And then it's like how can you argue against him? He could have thrown out vanilla and it would have been correct.
That's probably what I would have said. Yes, French vanilla or vanilla bean,
right? But he came out with this fancy flavor that they come out with, so I was like, well, I guess that works.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. It's like that movie had a lot of great bits, a lot of great scenes,
right?
A lot of great male relationships. Even the dentist that get the father and son, they're both dentists, right?
Right. Yes.
And the black ones, and they come and they don't get because they're not the main characters, but they even talk about little stuff there, and that's fun. And then those two brothers, and then the three of them, and then you just slip the woman in there just to kind of. Because you need a little something, otherwise it's just going to be too much, man. You need a little something. You need a woman in there,
right?
And it's a good way, because then you literally have somebody to kind of ask the question, to kind of get the guys talking about stuff. So she's like, "What do guys talk about?" And then their little reference to baseball, and it's a good story. It's funny, not too serious. It has its moments. It's really just enjoyable.
Right. One of those moments was there. So you had. One of the things that I remember that strongly impacted me was Curly's death. Like you referenced it earlier. I didn't see it coming. Like now that you talk about it, I can see that it's kind of following the hero's journey, but not necessarily the hero's journey, because there are three of them, and it's not just one person that's going through this journey. It's all three of us kind of going through this journey. So in the hero's journey, you have the mentor, and the mentor dies. So they kind of followed that story element. But I didn't see it coming. But the way they did it was impactful, because I guess even if you know that it's coming, it's how it comes, right? So it's like they're all nervous about Curly, but then Mitch decides he's going to invite Curly to the bonfire, and he's just sitting on the rock. Right. And he sees Curly sitting there, just like, oh man, he's a real cowboy. He's sleeping with his eyes open. Which I don't think is a thing, right?
No. Like how that's not a thing, but it's a good lead-in. Can I just say the fact I'm surprised you loved Kung Fu, right? Didn't you say that you loved? How isn't that the samurai story? Isn't that, the teacher, the student, and eventually? I mean, I feel like that's kind of a running thing in there.
Yeah.
So, but for me, I'm bad. You can't watch a movie with me,
right?
Because I'm looking for that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember even as a kid, I remember thinking that.
Well, I don't mind not being surprised, but I do mind how it's done. Like it has to be done. If you're going to do it, it has to be done well. And I think this instance, it was done extremely well. And he walks up to him, and the dude is not moving. And he realizes that Curly had just died, just sitting there, just on the rock.
Yeah.
And then one dude was like, "Well, he ate bacon every day, But the fact that he was so fit and so strong, and he's just out in the open every day. I remember when Mitch was talking about how leathery he was. It's like, did you see that guy? He's all leathery. So yeah, that that death was impactful. And and how what's his name? The Cookie gave him the eulogy.
Mhm.
He was like, God, we give you Curly. Don't piss him off. It's like, that's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say? We got to move cattle.
This guy wasn't a poet or anything. He was a cowboy. Keep it simple. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, and like the whole cattle drive was good. That the whole sequence where, you know, they decided, like, none of the other people that was there for the cattle drive, like after Curly's death, and then after the two ranch hands who were supposed to help them, I mean, they were all drunk. They were both drunk and abusive. So that whole scene where they had that fight, that was pretty good. And then what's his name? Phil, how he almost lost it after he got the gun.
Yep.
He was ready to kill somebody or himself.
Yeah.
Right. So he was
somebody's getting it.
Right.
Yeah.
He was on the edge. He had his friends to talk him down. And then there was and then it was after that, after everybody had left, the three men decided, because at first Ed was going to do it by himself. Ed was going to drive all the cattle by himself, but then his friends came by. It's like, there's no way we're going to let like this one friend do everything. This is our friend. It's like, we're not going to leave him behind. So they left at first, and then they came back. And you know, with all improbability, they was able to drive the cattle. Curly, not Curly, but Mitch saved the calf that he helped birth. And then they got the cattle to the ranch. And that's basically the movie. One of the things I noticed that Mitch had this thing where he would say hello to everybody. That was his thing. I was like, oh, so he was saying that before Medea. So
no. I can't even talk about Medea. Yeah, but long before And Norman, that was Norman who made it right into the second silver City Slickers. So he loved that cat. He loved that cat.
Right. The cow and the horse. So was there anything else that you wanted to talk about on one of your
No, I think we covered. I feel like we hit the plot. The whole story about the man. It was enjoyable. I like the story, how they put it together. It was well done, well acted. It's a good, enjoyable story that, I don't know, maybe another 30 years or something, it'll get, somebody will do some version of it. I don't know, get a black version of it or something. I think it would be fun. See if it gets done.
That would be fun. All right, so that's it for our favorite parts. And after this transitional musical tone, we're going to hit the trivia section. All right, we're back with the trivia from IMDb. Some of the things that you may have known about City Slickers, some things you may not have known. We're going to give you some interesting information, and I'm going to tell you about the story that Billy Crystal tells on his best day of going to a Yankee game with his father. It's a true story from his childhood. He notes at this point that I still have the program. Not only does he really still have it, but he got Mickey Mantle to autograph it twice, once at the game that day, and once again, some 20 years later on a talk show that they were both guests on.
Daniel Stern declined the writing lessons offered for the movie in order to better convey his character's inexperience at a horse ride.
Yeah, that's
good thing to do. That's smart. He shouldn't look too comfortable. If they're City Slickers, they shouldn't be coming out there all comfortable riding a horse. It should feel weird.
Right.
Smart.
It's funny, right? Because it's like that was his method acting coming through.
Yep.
That's like, it's almost like reverse method acting. Usually, when you're playing a character that's supposed to be proficient with a horse, then you don't know how to ride a horse, then you go and learn how to ride a horse. Right. Or like Tom Cruise for the first Top Gun movie, he didn't know how to ride a motorcycle, so he went and he had to learn how to ride a motorcycle. So that sort of thing. So this is different. It's like, I don't have experience in doing this, so I'm gonna refrain from learning how to do it until we get on set, so I can show that I don't know how to do this.
And you could tell he was struggling.
He was struggling. Another true story from Billy Crystal's life portrayed in the movie is the wake-up call from his mother on his birthday. According to the DVD commentary, his mother would call him on his birthday at around 5 o'clock in the morning, the time when he was born, and verbally reenact the event over the phone. The rendition in the film is word for word the true story of Billy Crystal's birth.
It's so funny. It's so interesting. And he's laying in bed with his wife, and they know she's gonna call, and they answer it, and he's like, and he kind of read it, like, and he's mouthing it, and
Yeah.
it's so cute.
Yeah, he's
It's
lip singing
so
her.
cute.
Yeah, he's lip
Yeah,
singing her
it's
speech.
fantastic. It's so cute. Billy Crystal liked the horse he rode so much he bought it. The horse is named Beechnut and is the same one he rides in City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold, which was not good at all, which is disappointing.
Yeah, I remember
2
it.
was,
Right, I remember it not being great.
yeah, it wasn't. No.
Crystal, a notoriously diehard New York Yankees fan, wears a New York Mets cap. So we talked about this earlier. In the film, as explained by Crystal in the DVD commentary, he did this because the New York Mets had made a major contribution and helped out his annual comic relief charity. So, yeah, you give him
That's
some
nice
money
of him.
for a charity,
Yeah.
then you should
Yeah.
give him some recognition. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, though. I remember comic relief. Did you ever see any of those shows?
Oh my God. Whoopi, Billy, and Robin every year making money. Oh, I remember those.
Yes,
Very
I
much so.
love those shows.
They were three of the funniest people, and they were so good together. Those were great. And that's really, I feel like Whoopi really pushed her up there because she was on stage with two legends in comedy by then already.
Right.
He was surrounded by two other great people. I remember every one of those. They were fun.
Yes.
HBO. Let's see. The shot of Norman getting to his feet was real footage taken just after birth. Crystal actually assisted in delivery. 3 pregnant cows were on hand in case retakes were needed. 6 calves were used in all, and Crystal arranged for them all to live full lives on a farm. The scene is one of the favorites of any he's had to do, and since then, he's never eaten veal.
Right.
That's interesting. It's a great scene. You can see that little connection he had with Norman. It was great. All of that was fun, and that's nice to hear that he took care of those cows.
Right.
Yeah,
It's mirroring what actually happened in the movie.
Right. Yeah.
Where
he took care of them.
He took Norman home in the movie. He took Norman home, and it's like at first he said, "Yeah, he's going to be in the house," and then they said it's going to take him to a petting zoo. It's like because I hadn't remembered the ending, and I was like, he's not going to take that cow home. And he's like, yeah, he took the cow home. So Bruno Kirby was extremely allergic to horses. Prior to each day of filming involving a horse, he required an injection of allergy medication to get through the day's shooting. That's so much dedication to the movie and to, having to deal with certain things.
I really relate Bruno. Well, I don't know. When I see him, I always think of Billy Crystal because to me, it's City Slickers and When Harry Met Sally. Those are the two the most important. That and obviously he's Godfather 2 in a kind of a smaller role. But I always remember that. I always relate those two, connect those two. Actually, they did a third one. No, was he in Forget Paris too? I'm pretty sure he was in Forget Paris also. So I always think of Bruno and Billy, and they're always just fun to get that. I'm pretty sure he was in that. Yeah. Billy Crystal was so impressed with the performance of David Paymer in this film that he went on to cast him as his brother in Mr. Saturday Night from 1992. The role would earn Paymer an Oscar nomination. I remember that movie. That's Billy Crystal as an old stand-up comedian, kind of towards the end of his career. Good movie. Wasn't best. It wasn't his best. City Slickers is better, I think. But I remember that role. And I remember Paymer is always good. He's always he's the character actor. You see him and you know him.
Right.
You always know him. So yeah, I remember enjoying that movie. Enjoying that performance a lot. Yeah.
According to Crystal, he recalled on the first day of shootings with Jack Palance as being particularly intimidating. Palance had gotten into it with director Ron Underwood. When Crystal later asked Palance why there was an argument, Palance said that it was his first day jitters on the set.
Which is interesting. Palance had quite a career. Like, I'm surprised by then he still had jitters.
Right.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it is. The characters Ira and Barry were inspired by real-life ice cream entrepreneurs Ben and Jerry. In a 2015 Reddit AMA, the real-life duo revealed that most people assumed it was really them in the film. They added that in real life, they can't recommend the perfect ice cream for any meal. Of course not.
What's also interesting is that I don't remember them being on the packaging, but in the movie, the characters were on the packaging. And people assumed that they were on the packaging. And
Right.
that's when Mitch was like, "You're not. That's not you." And they were like, "No, it's not us. Those are models." So the movie's title did not easily translate into foreign languages. Oh man! So you'll correct me when I pronounce this wrong,
Go for it.
because I am going to butcher. If anybody is listening in France right now, I offer my apologies in advance. I'm going to butcher your language right now. So in France, it was called La vie, l'amour, les vaches. Literally, love. Oh, that was good. Oh, I
You're pretty
appreciate
good.
that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Literally, love, life, and cows. And in Italy, it was Scapo dalla Tita, La vida, l'amour, e la vece. And that translate. Yeah, I know I messed that up. Apologize to Italian speakers. That translate would sound, I ran away from the city, life, love, and cows. In Greece, this is going to be bad. I'm going to mess this up. It ekenes babastin agra dicey, which means, so what do you do in the so what did you do in the Far West, Dad? That's where that translates. And that's a completely different title, which is understandable, because when you think about it, city slickers is more of a phrase than two separate words. You can't really separate them, because the slickers by itself doesn't mean anything except for like a rain slicker that you would wear, and you really can't even say that without saying rain and then slicker. So slicker by itself really doesn't have a true meaning, so you kind of have to say it together. And then city slicker doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know who came up with that phrase.
I mean, I'd heard it before. I'd heard it before, but it's an American thing. It's the only way it's going to work, I think.
I think it comes from being like slick. So people from the city, they come off as being slick, and they come off being like overconfident, or thinking that they know better than people are in the country. So I think that's where that slick. I think slick maybe translates to arrogant. So if you're a city slicker,
I think you're right.
Right. City slicker is like a super arrogant person from the city. But I think at the time they couldn't figure out how to translate that. So they basically went with the completely different. And it's like in France, they called it Love, Life, and Cows, which is probably a better title, at least overseas.
As close as you're going to get. Yeah, as close as you're going to get.
Because that describes the movie.
Yeah, it does. I guess because you can't, because it doesn't translate well, you have to find a way to get the Dude Ranch part to it. Yeah. So just stick cows in there, and everybody knows what the cow looks like. They just go with that. Yeah, right? Let's see. Billy Crystal co-wrote the story, but is not given on-screen credit. Billy was at home watching television about getaway breaks when the world's cattle drive came to mind. Within a few minutes, he sketched out an idea. In 5 lines, he had the adventures of 3 guys entering midlife who join a cattle drive and go off into the wilderness. So easy how a movie just comes to mind.
Right.
It's like, it's interesting. He got it, and then everything else around it just makes it special.
Right.
But it's a great story.
Yeah, I think he probably wrote the first draft of the movie, and then gave it to 2 other writers to flesh it out. But he doesn't get writer credit, but instead he gets producer credit. He gets executive producer credit. So I think that's because it's something like you can only have like 2 writers credited in a movie. So it's something along those lines. So that's it for the trivia. I hope you found that interesting. And after this musical cue, we're going to talk about what the critics thought. Hello, friends. If you're living in the Forestville, Maryland area, then I have a PSA for you. Suds Laundromat is back open for business. That's right, Suds Laundromat at 3306 Walters Lane at the Penn Forest Shopping Center in Forestville, Maryland is back in business. You may have thought that it was closed, but now it has reopened. It's under new ownership with new washers, new dryers, and for your convenience, offers the option to pay by the way of the Dexter app. So you don't have to lug around a whole bunch of quarters. If you live in or near Fordsville, Maryland, then bring your dirty, stinking, nasty clothes down to the Penn Forest Shopping Center and get a clean and efficient wash at Suds Laundromats. Thank you. And so we're back. Talk about what the critics thought. So the critics on Rotten Tomatoes, they gave it a 90%. The audience score was 64%. So wow, that's a huge drop. And on IMDb, it got 6.8 out of 10. I had to check this over and over again. It's like, whoa, why is such a low audience score?
That's interesting. Surprising. It's such a nice movie.
Right.
I guess that's how people are looking for. People wanted some more adventure, so I guess it didn't.
Right.
What it is. Owen Gleiberman from Entertainment Weekly. He said, City Slickers is really about how the West can never be more than a dream to contemporary urban Americans. With high comic style, it shows us what a lovely dream that is. I don't know if he really understood this movie. That is as vague a statement as I think I've said. The West is just where they go. It's kind of the point, but it really isn't. So I don't know if I agree with it too much.
Well, I see the West as the lifestyle. So they're talking about that Western, that specific part of Western lifestyle of moving cattle. So they take themselves out of their comfort zone. They put themselves in a zone where they're not as comfortable, and and basically how it affects those men. And I think it's vague, but it's accurate, right? So, and this is just a piece of his review, but. Yeah, I think it's accurate in that stance.
Mm-hmm. David Bax from Battleship Pretension. Crystal's then hegemonic stardom constantly realigns the film into his, not his character's orbit.
I don't think he
realigns.
Right, I don't think he understands how these movies work. He did. Billy Crystal did put a lot of himself in this movie, but the movie is less about his. It's less about him. It's more about his character. But he is his character in this movie, right?
So that's why it works. It's not ego or anything. It fits all these little things, and it's his movie. Let's not act like it shouldn't have some of it to him. A lot of the stuff about him fits this character because he's not really playing a character. He's really
right. He's playing himself in that circumstance. And another thing is that he is a comedian, especially at that time. He's not, really an actor. Is going to throw himself into the role. He's not doing deep method acting. It's just that this is a neat idea. He felt that it was a part that he can play. And like I said, it's a lot of himself in this movie. And people go to see it because they want to see Billy Crystal in this movie. They're not going to see him play a character. They want to see him. It's like when I forgot his name. The dude was in Liar Liar. What's his name again?
Jim Carrey.
Yeah, Jim Carrey. It's like when you see Jim Carrey and he's when you go to see him, you want to see Jim Carrey act foolish. You want to go do his comedy stits or whatever. But then you see him in a serious role. You don't really take to him too fondly. Usually, for some reason, he's in a bad movie. And then another when he's doing like serious roles. And then another thing is like, that's not why I went to see Jim Carrey. I went to see him act a fool, right?
Right. Yeah. He's good though. He's a really good actor, but his comedy roles are so dynamic that it's hard to go see him be serious.
Right.
He's a fantastic dramatic actor, actually. But I know exactly what you mean. You go to see Ace, you expect Ace Ventura every time you go to a movie to see him. Right.
And
he's not always going to be that guy. Yeah.
Right. But see, it's funny, right? Because Robin Williams didn't have that problem. And I think that he was going after what Robin Williams had.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying that because Robin Williams, he had done like outrageous comedy roles, but at the same time, he's done like very serious roles and had gotten accolades for both of those. Both. But
he was a phenomenal. He's one of my favorite stand-ups, but one of my favorite actors also. He'd done some random stuff. Remember from Mork and Mindy, but if you remember, Like he was on that staff with Richard Pryor. If you're at the Richard Pryor show, he was on there. You knew he was funny. Then he does Mork and Mindy, and then he's on Happy Days, and that's how they spun him off to Mork and Mindy. But all these great, then he would drop and he would do something like Dead Poet Society, or like absolute amazing stuff. And then he would switch it up again, because first he's all funny, then he's serious, and then he goes creepy. And then if you ever up to do, then 1 Hour Photo is one of the creepiest performances you will ever see. It's bad.
Right.
It's like him, that and Insomnia are two really crazy performances of his. But it's comedy because he's amazing, dramatic because he's amazing, and then a lot of times it's a mixture of both. No matter how dramatic he is, there's always something funny in there because that's in his nature.
Right.
And and even the voice acting he did, all that stuff. Aladdin, he's amazing in Aladdin. He's amazing in all the stuff that he's done. So,
right. I think that he just either he's really good at picking roles, and he was very fortunate with the roles he had chose when he went in a dramatic direction.
Right. He was smart. He picked the right things. He's like, you do something dramatic. Like he could do Awakenings where he was a doctor and you can kind of believe him. A Dead Poet Society when he's a serious teacher and you can believe him when he's doing all these things. Or Good Will Hunting when you can believe him as this serious psychiatrist who's funny, who's got these parts to him. But then he'll do random stuff like Toys, which is a terrible movie, but I love Toys. Or he did some great stuff. But then he has one of the best catalogs ever. So he was one of those people that you would be comfortable seeing him in either performance, either dramatic or comedy. Mrs. Doubtfire is great. Birdcage is great. I miss that guy.
Right.
He was amazing. I miss that guy. Mm-hmm.
So moving along, Betsy Bosdeck from DVDjournal.com, she wrote, one of the most satisfying comedies of the 90s, offering both laughs and, without being too sentimental about it, a positive message about living life to the fullest. And that's exactly right. Especially with, what's his name? Phil? No, not Phil.
Yep.
Phil was a problem. Especially with Ed. Ed was the one.
Right.
Ed is always he was the one that's always trying to get everybody to do these types of things.
Right.
So especially with Ed, he's desperately trying to live life to the fullest. And then David N. Butterworth wrote, he's from cr.arts.movies.reviews, one of the flattest cowboy spoofs to mosey on down the trail in a long while. So he's obviously wrong.
He had no clue what he was watching. That's a damn shame. He didn't know what he was watching. That's terrible.
So it's not even a cowboy spoof. It's not meant to be a cowboy spoof. A
Not a
cowboy
spoof at
spoof
all.
would be like Blazing Saddles. That's
Right, and that's a
cowboy
damn
spoof.
good one.
Right.
Yeah.
And this isn't a cowboy spoof. This is a story about, they're not making fun of cowboys. They're making fun of themselves trying to be cowboys, right?
Exactly.
So if you could say it that way. So he got it totally wrong, but I appreciate his contribution to the podcast. Anyways, as a reminder, I just picked these things up from RottenTomatoes.com. So finally, City Slickers is as of this recording available for purchase as Blu-ray or DVD. Oops, that's completely wrong. You can actually watch this on what did I watch? I think I watched this on HBO. Yeah, City Slickers is available on HBO Max at this time.
I have the DVD, so I had to pull it out and put it into my PlayStation to watch, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. It was fun.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's it for today. Please join us next week where we have another special guest. Oh, you know what? This is this is the correct. See, I'm reading this and was like, did I edit this already? Yeah, I think I did. I think I did edit this already. So please join us next week where I have another special guest. Host Morgan Cobbs. I got it out. Host Morgan Cobbs of Cobb's Corner Podcast. Cobb's Corner Podcast, Morgan Cobbs talks about movies and TV that is heavily focused on Marvel and DC and Star Wars. And next week, we talk about another one of my favorite movies of yesteryears. That movie is Rocky. Follow us on... Yeah. Well, it was on the list. You could have chosen it.
No, it's fine. No, I'm glad I picked what I picked. No, that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
I'm glad we weren't. You picked City Slickers, by the way. I gave you a few options, and you said, "Let's do this one."
No,
it was you who picked it.
I chose.
I narrowed it down to 3, and you picked City Slickers.
I chose the first option.
Yeah.
Follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backclick Cinema, or on Facebook or Instagram at Backclick Cinema Podcast for updates. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions or comments or suggestions at fanmail@backclickcinema.com. Do you have give us your plugs, my good man? Where can our audience find you?
So the podcast is available everywhere. So remember, it's podcasts because I have more than one. So Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. It's available everywhere. Same thing for Love Is Black podcast. You can find us everywhere. My podcast, Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E, is now on a TV network. It's called ngbn.tv. It is a TV network for men 40 to 60. So you can go to that website, and Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E, I have my own page, so you can watch episodes there. My website, harveylaguerre.com, which is still in process. We're still putting foundation, putting concrete in there to get it going. But you can still find my episodes of podcasts everywhere, and the TV network NGBN TV to watch the episodes. So that's where it is. And Bracket Bastards, which is just every week, which you can find that everywhere too, is just a podcast of us just doing brackets about random stuff. We have one coming up. I think Soundtracks is going to come up. We did one about the best school movies, the best school TV shows. We have real fun stuff that we talk about. I've been doing it for about a year now, and a bunch of people I met online. And my claim to fame, sadly, is my dislike for Will Smith. So to make fun of me, they did a whole bracket and didn't tell me about it till we were recording of Will Smith movies. So I had to spend like 2 hours sitting here rattling through Will Smith movies. I'm like, oh, this was terrible, but it was fun. It was an enjoyable episode. So give Bracket Bastards a listen to also. That's all me.
Do you have any social media links that you want to let your listeners?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on Twitter at menzealous. I am on Instagram, our Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E. You can find me on LinkedIn, actually, Harvey Laguerre. Facebook, Harvey Laguerre, go by my name, or The Prize Is Men. I have a page for the podcast. So let me see, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I have a TikTok page, which is Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E. I'm still working on that. Like, TikTok is a whole different animal. I don't know if I'm suited for that just yet, but I'm still trying. So yeah, I'm out there on social media. You put my name in, you'll pretty much find me everywhere. Everywhere that you do social media or you get your podcasts, you will find me.
Yeah, I hear you on that TikTok. I'm
trying.
I got like 5
my kids
videos
love it. Me too. Maybe 5 or 6, and like nobody's watching them. And I'm like, oh my, what the hell?
Right. So, one last time, if you like this show, then please help us grow. You can do this by subscribing. You can rate the show, write a review on Spotify, spotchaser.com, or Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. And I know you've enjoyed our guest, Harvey Laguerre, so please find Mr. Laguerre on Love Is Black and Men Are The P.R.I.Z.E, and as he mentioned, Bracket Bastard podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Believe me, it matters. Be safe, share a movie from yesteryear with your family, hug your loved ones, and if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.